So why don't we just break down the species in general and how, as far as mainland dwarf and super dwarf goes, how does this all play out?
Right. So mainlands mainlands is basically a term that describes the reticulated pythons that are found on the larger islands. So you have Malaysia, you have Java, you have Bali, you have Sulawesi. The list goes on and on and on. That's the coolest thing about retics is they literally have the largest span, the largest geographical area of any other python. They're found on two different continents all over the place. So mainland are the ones that we refer to as like the large localities, right? Or not even locality, but like in today's day and age, an ocelot. Ocelot is a morph. That morph is still considered a mainland because it was found on, a larger island or larger landmass. So, and then you have dwarf. Dwarf originally, it was a term that was used to describe animals from two islands. So that's Jampea and Selayer Island. Now the term is those were the two original, but the way that I conceptualize it is you have large localities, medium localities, and small localities. So dwarfs are considered the medium-sized localities. And across dwarf, there are other localities. There are Ternates, I think the Mindanao, Philippines fall in that medium-sized locality. They get 13, 14 feet, but they're super lean, right? So those are the dwarfs, right? When we refer to dwarfs, we're referring to medium size, and typically, historically speaking, it refers to Selayer and Jampea, and then arguably Kayuwati. Kayuwati is like arguably there's some people that are like, nah, Kayuwatis are dwarfs, and then some people are like, no, Kayuwatis are super dwarfs. I kind of think they're like the perfect in between, right? Like they're smaller than the dwarfs, they're a little bit bigger than the super dwarfs.
Hence the problem with trying to categorize everything.
Right, exactly. Especially with such loose terms that are kind of misleading.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the super dwarf islands. Super dwarf islands, you can expect, an adult full size 10 to 12-year-old pure super dwarf, on average for females still get anywhere between, 8 to 9 on the smaller side for these 10 to 12-year-olds, up to 10 and a half feet for, the larger size of females. And then, so those islands are Kalatoa, Karumpa, Madu, again, arguably Kayuwati. There is also Tambalongan. Tambalongan is another subspecies of Saputria. It's a smaller island that's off of the island of Selayer. And Tambalongans, again, we don't have many in the US. In the UK, a lot of people call them super dwarfs, but again, there's some people that call them dwarfs. But at the end of the day, I like to use the term manageable size retic, right? Because, as much as we'd like to, we can't predict size. So let's go over just the main 7 real quick again. So the two dwarfs, Jampea and Selayer, then you have Kayuwati, Karumpa, Kalatoa, Madu, and Tambalongan. So those are the 7 that most people identify as the dwarf and super dwarf islands.
Okay. And then as far as their actual appearance, does each locality have a very specific, look to them? Like, can you tell by the eye, or they all kind of blend together?
Yeah. So, like out of those 7, Selayers are like, in my opinion, Selayers are the most distinguishable. Saputriais have like this like very blunt square nose. And
that's actually pretty interesting that there's actual like a skeletal difference.
Yeah, so they have a blunt square nose. They have more of a bulldog head, and they are just like red, orange, yellows with thick blacks, very distinguishable. And then, Jampeas are the other subspecies. So it's the subspecies of Jampianus, and under Jampianus also encompasses the Kalatoa, the Madu, the Karumpa. Like those have been kind of categorized in that subspecies. And now Jampeas are they're more distinguishable to the superdwarf islands, one because their size, but they have much wider triangular or diamond like back patterns, and high white rosettes that kind of, that you can see them. But as far as like the smaller ones, Kalatoa, Karumpa, Madu, and Kayuwadi, those four. In my opinion, the most distinguishable out of those four is the Kayuwadi. Kayuwadis have, they are darker. They have a more red and orange undertone, but still kind of have that brownish, gray, silver background, rather than like the Soleils that are like, I said orange and red undertones, but they are like orange and red. But like it's kind of a debatable thing. Like a lot of people like look at a snake and they're like, oh, that's not a Kalatoa, that's a Madu, or oh, that's not a Madu, that's a Karumpa. To be honest, like everybody who makes those statements here in the US are using just the animals that we have that were imported here.
Right.
As such localities. And the overwhelming amount of different polygenic traits and different variations of looks on each island, it's really not like in the US. Yeah, we could probably look at a Madu and say that's likely a Madu, but anybody who says they can do it 100%, I don't buy it. But yeah, in my opinion, I think the Karumpa Islands, Kalatoa, and Madus, I think they should have their own subspecies. I think they're so closely related, and they're different enough from Jampayas because they stay smaller. But the three of those are a little overlapping in terms of look. Like just for what we know here in North America, for the most part, is Karumpas or Karampas. They are known to be a lot more busy and chaotic at the neck, and more of just like a very broken, pixelated pattern. Madus are known to either be very stripy or have like very symmetrical diamonds along the back. And they have a little bit more of like a bluish green hue with like their iridescence and reflection. And Kalatoas, we have quite a few variations of Kalatoas here in the US. So I don't know. It's hard to explain Kalatoa because for me, like Kalatoas are known to have like a good trademark is like a solid black dorsal pattern along the back. But again, like I'm saying these things and people are going to look at the retics and be like, oh, I have a Kalatoa. And it's like, nope. Like, because there's a lot of overlap.
So then how, I know in the boa world, you have people who are like Vin Russo, who are very strict with localities, keeping things pure as far as the lines go from these certain areas. And then you have people who are just like, wow, just like even hybridized species, who cares? And I imagine in the